You can see there's different amounts of the zooplankton sample, zooplankton biomass in each one of these containers. This is the oligotrophic system here. This is Willen Pond. This is Lake Cochituick, which is a mesotrophic system. And this is Lake Attitash, which is a highly eutrophic system. And you can see there's different amounts in each one. So we've just completed our 20-minute separation process where we have physically separated out the zooplankton from the phytoplankton. And we're doing that because we want to be able to see how much toxin is in each compartment of the food web. And the samples will be brought back to the lab, and they will extract the toxin and look at weight-specific toxicity to see whether we have a situation of biomagnification or biodilution as the toxin moves from the phytoplankton portion to the zooplankton portion. So we're going to stop the process, and we're going to put the samples through different filter cones that we've developed that make it much easier to be able to transport these samples from the field back to the lab. We also provide for drying the samples in the field so that we don't have any kind of extra bacterial contamination and things like that. So we have come up with field drying chambers and desiccators that we're using. So let's take a look at how these filter cones work. If you find you need to work with the sample a little bit, you can always squeeze it from the top and it agitates the sample inside. Here's our sample from Lake Cochituick, which is the mesotrophic system. Probably find that it takes a little bit longer to filter this particular sample out. Oh, not bad. That went quick. So we'll take out this filter cone from Lake Cochituick, and we'll put that in our drying chamber as well. The drying chamber is very, very simple and straightforward. We've just put a couple of heat packs in here inside, and we've been letting them sit for 20 minutes now. It's about 110 to 120 degrees inside the drying chamber. And all we have to do is take our filter cone, we place it inside the drying chamber. We'll end up having all 3 filter cones with the zooplankton sample inside this container when we're finished. And now let's get Lake Attitash. We dabbed a little bit of extra water off the sample before we put it into the drying chamber. So now I have all 3 of my zooplankton samples are here. They're in the drying chamber. They're going to be protected. Nothing's going to tear the mesh filter. If you find as you're out in the field that you notice that this is starting to cool down a little bit, just give it a good shake and it'll heat right back up. These samples should be dry in an hour and a half to 2 hours, is my guess. So let's get the phytoplankton portion. The zooplankton samples we're putting through the smallest filter cone that we have here. You can see this can be a pretty passive system. You can just, it's filtering all by itself. If you find you need to work with the sample a little bit, you can always squeeze it from the top and it agitates the sample inside, makes it go down to the bottom. So it's pretty passive and you can go off and do other things while your sample is filtering out. Okay, so we're done with this one. Let's take this cartridge off and we'll put this phytoplankton sample. Let's get rid of the excess water here. And we'll put this phytoplankton sample into the desiccator. The very large filter cones that we use for the eutrophic systems. And as you can imagine, if you use this filter cone on a mesotrophic system, that the sample would go through very quickly, and it does. And you can largely leave that sample unattended. But we'll see what happens here with Lake Attitash. One of the things you can do is use these side ports to rinse that sample that's inside your filter cone down into the bottom. That's a lot of phytoplankton. If we put all 3 of these filter cones into the drying chamber, samples like this, probably 6 to 8 hours when you have all 3 of them in there, drying time. So it's about the maximum time that you have for your little heat packs that are inside the drying chamber. So I mentioned earlier we had these field desiccators. These we use after we have dried the samples. Just curl it up into a little tube. We can put the 3 of them in here. We screw this on, and this will keep the samples nice and dry, free from contamination, free from getting wet by anything, and transport them back to the lab, and they're all dry and ready to go by the time you get back.